Good evening, everyone. My name is Noah Newman. I'm a fourth-year medical student at Wake Forest School of Medicine, and welcome to tonight's virtual town hall. Medical school application season is an exciting time for applicants. It can also be very anxiety-provoking and very challenging. Too often, applicants receive misinformation from inaccurate sources. The application process is already long and challenging enough as it is. So we feel it's important to help in this journey by giving you all reliable information from people who make those decisions. So before we begin, I just want to take a second to talk about YPI. And YPI is the Young Physicians Initiative. It's an organization created back a few years ago, all by medical student volunteers who are interested in helping to encourage people to pursue medicine. So I encourage you all to check out our website to learn more. We have all kinds of interesting and cool mentorship opportunities and chances to learn more about medical school. So check it out at www.ypiprogram.com. Either way, we are about to start introducing our panel of medical school admissions faculty who will be answering your questions and our questions in a live Q&A format. If at any point you have a question for our panelists, please post them in the comments section below. Just a few quick pointers about creating questions. First, the shorter the better. This software won't let us display very long questions, so try to keep them concise, no longer than a couple sentences. Next, if you have more than one question, please, you can make multiple comments. This is a chance for you guys to share your questions with our panelists. And then last, we usually receive more questions than we can answer. So we try to select questions that the most viewers could benefit from. So if you have a question that's highly specific to your situation, think about how you can rephrase it in a way that will be more applicable to other people as well. And so finally, we ask for your feedback at the end. So towards the end of the broadcast, we'll post a quick survey link. Take a second to fill it out. Tell us how we can do better and improve. And then we'll select one person who filled it out to win a set of Frank Netter Anatomy flashcards, which is a really great resource for any first-year medical students. So now I'm going to introduce our panel. So first up tonight, we have Miss Amy Ahern. She is the Assistant Director of Admissions at the University of Iowa, Carver College of Medicine. Thank you so much.
You bet. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. And then next we have Mr. Dan Kallenberger. He's the Assistant Dean of Admissions and Financial Services at the Oakland University William Beaumont School of Medicine.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see you.
Well, we will get started, and thank you all both so much for being here tonight.
My pleasure.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having us.
So we'll start with our first question. And that question is, if you could tell us a little bit about what your interview format is going to look like this year. And for those that interviewed last year, are there any changes you're making to that interview format? Ms. Ahern, we can start with you first.
Sure. So yeah, our interview format is going to look very different than it did in 2020 because we are doing the majority of our interviews in person. We are welcoming guests back. We do 15 applicants per interview day. And so we've assessed that it is safe to do this. And so we will be having in-person days. We will be having limited virtual options as well, though, because let's face it, traveling to Iowa, I'm not sure if you've done that lately, but let's say you're going to join us from California. That could be an expensive trip over. And we completely understand that this year and in the past year too, not everything turned out financially like we'd all hoped and planned for. So we will have a limited number of virtual interviews, but the majority of our interviews will be done in person on our campus. Also, we're in Iowa, right? We don't have the beach or the mountains right outside the door. And so sometimes when people actually come to our campus, that's the moment where they put it together and they say, oh yeah, Iowa does have a lot of great things to offer. So we're excited to have people back and can experience our campus life on their interview day. So in terms of numbers, we're doing the same number of interviews that we did last year. which is right in line with what we did in 2019. So our numbers never changed. Our format never changed of how we interviewed candidates. It's just that this year we're really excited to be able to welcome people back to campus safely, and still have a virtual option for those that choose that route. Actually, our admissions committee will not know if our candidates choose a virtual or in-person interview, because we don't want them to assess interest level or anything else based on a candidate's choice.
That is really exciting. You're having people back onto campus.
We are.
Mr. Kallenberger, tell us about your school. What are y'all doing?
Yeah, for our cycle this year, we're going to be very similar to last year. We are going to continue to offer virtual interviews through the entire cycle. We won't have any in-person interviews. We'll continue to interview right around 500 people throughout the entire application cycle, which actually started last Friday, and will continue until March. So there's plenty of opportunities to be invited for an interview here at OUWB. We are offering a couple of different in-person options that weren't available last year. Our hope is we will have an in-person second look in April. So you have an opportunity for admitted students to come and visit campus, similar to folks at the University of Iowa. When people visit us in the suburbs of Detroit, they tend to realize that all the misconception and misinformation about Detroit and southeastern Michigan isn't usually accurate, and they really enjoy their experience. So we do want to bring students, admitted students, to the campus, see the vibrant campus that we have, the facilities that are available, potentially visit our clinical partner with Beaumont Health System down at Royal Oak in one of our flagship teaching hospitals. So that's our hope for second look. And then throughout the season, we're going to be offering admitted students opportunities to come visit campus and meet with our students as well to get a campus tour here at OU, at Oakland University. That will begin in October and will continue in really through the entire summer, through the entire application process through July. So we're hoping, again, that your admitted students are able to come to campus, see the facilities, see the environment, see the location. It's really a wonderful place for young professionals and young families to grow, to learn, and to really develop in their profession.
Guys, that is so exciting to hear that people are coming back to campuses. I mean, that is so important to get a taste of where you might live for 4 years.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So now we can go to our next question. So how would you suggest that applicants learn more about your institution given restrictions on COVID? Either any virtual resources or in-person resources you might recommend for those students wanting to learn more. And Mr. Kallenberger, we can start with you this time.
Yeah, this is a wonderful question. Certainly opportunities such as this provide you with some insights about our institutions, our admissions process, and what's available. So continue to take advantage of these virtual experiences that are hosted by different organizations. These are great opportunities. We also encourage you to touch base with your pre-health advisor on your campus. That's an important resource for you. Many of them know about OUWB, although we're a younger school. We do a really wonderful job of communicating and talking about our successes that our alumni have had and our students have while they're on campus here at OUWB. We do offer a number of different virtual activities throughout the cycle. About 10 different virtual experiences that focus on OUWB. We have webinars just about monthly, about 8 times a year. And then we have virtual kind of open houses, and we call those open houses because you get an opportunity to speak with our current students, hear a little bit more details about our curriculum, and go in more depth than the normal preview day or the normal virtual recruitment event would take place. So I would say that's the best route currently. We are hoping in the spring to have an in-person open house so you can come to campus and tour our facilities. But currently, with the restrictions in place, we want to be mindful of everyone's health and continue to offer those virtual experiences for those who can't come to campus.
Yeah, that's great that there are so many opportunities. Really great that your office is working on that.
Yes, thank you. They're going really well. We typically have about 100 people sign up every month, so they're very, very positive, and we get a lot of interaction from those as well. Wonderful questions, a lot of opportunities for you to ask your own questions, specific to our institution.
Yeah. And I would certainly emphasize to anyone applying to take advantage of those, because you want to do your research and homework ahead of time when making big decisions like this. Ms. Ahern, how about your institution, or do you have any recommendations?
Yeah, I was just taking some notes about some ideas I want to steal from Dan at their school. But no, we do host students for if they do choose to come for a one-on-one tour. We're still open to that. Probably this spring is the best time to do that for any prospective students. Online options, we will have a pre-medical conference that will be virtual. That's October 7th. If anyone's interested in more information about that, they can let me know. Anyone can attend from wherever you are. And we do offer office hours. Those are Thursdays from 10 to 11 Central Time. Anybody can stop by our virtual office. And again, I can get the right information to Noah if anybody wants to follow up later about that. And then finally, I don't know if anybody's into podcasts, but we do have the Short Coat podcast, which is broadcast from our offices every Friday. So there's new episodes weekly. They feature our medical students, and they talk about absolutely everything from what it's like to be a medical student to one day they were like eating some mystery things with blindfolds on. They had to guess what it is. I mean, they do all kinds of things in there. So again, it's just kind of an interesting and sometimes entertaining way to learn more about what it's like to be a medical student.
I like that. That's a really creative way to go about that.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fun. So the next question I have for y'all has to do with types of interviews that y'all have seen. Are there examples of students that have interviewed in the past that have really, really impressed you or stood out to you? My question is, what was done well? What are examples of things that have really impressed you when someone's interviewed? And Miss Ahern, we can start with you.
Yeah. So, it's really important to get the information as to how the school is conducting their interviews to give them what they want in that setting. So what I mean by that is at Carver, our interview is done in a closed file way. That means the interviewers have never seen the applicant's file, and they never will, because we have charged our interviewers with get to know these people as human beings off of paper entirely. We've said, trust us, they're smarter than you can even believe. Just get to know what they're like as a person. And so I want you to find out what format the school conducts their interview, because that's going to give you a lot of information that you need in order to really ace that interview. So in our interview, given that the interviewers have no context to your application whatsoever, your enthusiasm, your motivation, and your altruism for medicine needs to be really apparent to the interviewers. I can think back a couple years ago, I was doing an appointment with a student who was not admitted to our school because that's a service that we'll offer. We'll sit down with anyone that applies and go over their application and inform them about how they can strengthen a future application. So I'm preparing for the appointment. On paper, this person has, I think, a 3.9 GPA, a great MCAT score. They've done all the right things, right, in terms of checking the boxes to get into med school, whatever that means. But in the context of that interview, our interviewers couldn't tell if this individual was excited about being a doctor at all. And so ultimately, the feedback that I had to give this person was that, you won't be accepted this cycle because our interviewers could not detect any passion or enthusiasm or really altruistic motivations for you wanting to pursue medicine. So my point in that long story is make sure someone can tell your passions and your enthusiasm for medicine, and practicing the questions that you'd anticipate in an interview in a mirror. and then do it with your best friend or your mom or somebody and say, do I look excited when I'm talking about this? Do I look bored? Those kinds of things really come into play for a good interview assessment. So those are a couple tips I'd like to share.
Yeah. And I'll add to that being able to demonstrate those kinds of signs to people isn't important just for an interview. It's going to be important when you're a physician too, talking with patients. So really great practice to get those skills early in advance.
Yeah.
That's also a really neat service that your school offers. That's awesome.
You bet.
Mr. Kallinger, how about you? Or Kallenberger, sorry.
Yeah, I would echo many of the same things that Amy has already mentioned. Certainly identifying the format of the interview is important. Here at OUWB, we actually have a semi-blinded process. And what that means is your interviewers are going to be able to see your experiences. They're going to be able to see your personal statement and some short essay questions from the supplemental application. What we really want to use in the interview process and our screening process, we use our values and our mission to really guide us. So we want to know that students are compassionate, that they're collaborative, that they have the team skills needed to be successful in our program, that they have a passion and a quest for excellence. Those are important things to us. We want to see that they demonstrate professionalism, integrity, the personal characteristics that are needed to be, again, successful in medical school and beyond. I'm actually an interviewer. I interview quite frequently. I think one of the things that impresses me most is when a candidate is really reflective on their experiences and they can genuinely talk about their excitement for specific experiences, how they've grown from those experiences, what they've learned, and how they've implemented some of those activities and what they've learned into future experiences. So how have you garnered social support from various family members or friends or other resources when you're struggling or having difficulty coping with the mistake that you've made or not meeting expectations that you have for yourself? Those are important characteristics to be able to demonstrate. And, again, as Amy has mentioned, having a passion for the medical profession is certainly important. So understanding your why medicine is your career path is one of the most critical answers to be able to respond and to have in your pocket, to not think about it too long, to gather your thoughts, but certainly have that. Why is medicine the career that I am undoubtedly committed to exploring and doing everything I can, and not just getting into medical school, but being successful while I'm in medical school. And ultimately, as Noah will be doing in a few short months, matching into a residency program of his choosing. So those are important attributes to have for us. And we like to see that those attributes are demonstrated during interview day.
And one thing that you had mentioned on your answer that I really liked was about incorporating experiences that you have had throughout your college experience or your life. Because in my mind, that's a big part of what tells your story. And so to demonstrate that to the application committee is just really important.
Absolutely. Especially for those of us who do utilize the semi-blind process, and experiences are viewable by the committee. But even in a situation like Amy, when you at University of Iowa, when you're able to reference some of your past experiences and incorporate those into the responses and demonstrate, team skills, leadership skills, communication skills, those are really, really impactful.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. So the next question I have for y'all has to do with the timeline of this year. So a lot of people wonder, when does the interview season end? How long should I wait to hear back from your institution? And part of that also reflects of, when does it start, in the sense of, is it important to apply early? Because it's oftentimes rolling admissions. So kind of the start and the end of the interview season for your school. And Mr. Kallenberger, we start with you this time.
Yeah, the interview season for us here at OUWB began last Friday, and we have another interview on Thursday, so just in a couple of days, and then we continue to interview until mid-March. Would I often give advice for applicants who are in the cycle? Start thinking about what you're passionate about, what you have an interest in, and continue to explore opportunities in those areas while you're applying. Just because you've submitted your application doesn't mean that you should stop, doing research or stop shadowing or stop volunteering in the community or in some cases stop going to class. We want to see your continued success and those experiences on your application, particularly those that I've identified as most meaningful. Why have they stopped after you've applied if they are most meaningful to you? We want to see that commitment to gaining meaningful medical experiences and a longitudinal commitment to serving others in the community. So those experiences are great updates to have in your application. We'll continue, at least here at OUWB, we'll continue to invite applicants for an interview all the way until the beginning of March. So there's plenty of opportunities to potentially be invited to an interview. So don't give up until you have a final decision from our institutions, but that also doesn't mean that you shouldn't continue to plan and explore those experiences that you have an interest and a passion for.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Miss Ahern.
Sure. Yeah, I would echo a lot of the things that Dan was talking about in terms of what happens after I apply. We will start our interview process mid-September, and then we will conclude our interviews usually about when I collapse in the middle of January, because it's truly all I do for that season. And so, yeah, we'll end the interviews about mid-January. One thing that applicants tell us they appreciate is that we do communicate with every applicant, whether or not they are accepted. And I just want to put another plug in. If an applicant is not accepted to our school, they can do a phone or Zoom meeting with myself, or there's about 4 other admission staff members that coach people on a future application if they intend to reapply with Carver. So it's good to get feedback, and it's really easy to just, go online and determine what you think was the cause of your demise in the application. But it's really better use of time and money and blood and sweat and tears to talk with somebody to actually get some relevant feedback for you. So we're happy to do that for applicants.
And now that Amy has dropped that feedback in there twice, we hope that everyone who applies and aren't successful really takes advantage of that. I would echo that is something we offer here at OUWB too. So 2 to 1. But that's something that, as Amy said, is really, really important to identify areas of your application to improve on for future cycles.
That's amazing that your institutions offer that. I certainly did not know those programs existed when I was applying, but what better way to get feedback than from y'all as opposed to blogs or Student Doctor Network. It's easy to get lost there.
Such a scary, scary place.
Yeah.
So for our next question, I wanted to ask about any tips for students who are wanting to prepare ahead for interviews. Any resources, websites, books, or just general words of wisdom from y'all based off of your experiences interviewing? And Miss Ahern, we can start with you.
Sure. So we do have an interview FAQ page on our website. So that's an easy place to start. Before I had this position, I was a career advisor for about 8 years. So interviewing is something that I get pretty excited about. And I would encourage everybody to contact their career center on campus to see what kind of career preparation resources that they have. Likely they're free as a student or as an alum. So I would direct you back to your career centers to see what kinds of things that they have to help people prepare well. I think Dan mentioned something earlier that you don't want your interview to be the first place where you're hearing yourself articulate why you want to be a physician, right? You want to be familiar with the words and the stories that you want to share. So I think practicing is important, but not to a point where it sounds like you have opened a can and your answer just spews out because it is so rehearsed and practiced. So I realize that's kind of vague, vague assistance to give you, but at the same time, I think practice is great, but not to the point of sounding overly rehearsed.
Right. That's a really good point. Mr. Kallenberger, how about you?
I would echo everything that Amy just said. You certainly want to be prepared. I always encourage applicants to review their application materials that they've already submitted. So look at your experiences. Look at how you described each experience. Look at your personal statement. Sometimes it's been 4 or 5 months since you've taken a look at that before you interview. If applicants are invited to interview here at OUWB, we provide a couple different resources to them, links to resources through OUWB, as well as resources that are free through the AAMC. The AAMC has a variety of different resources available for applicants to look at and really utilize in how to prepare for virtual interviews, how to prepare for an in-person interview. And that's a great free resource provided by the AAMC.
Yeah, that's really great. And one thing that both you guys had kind of touched on that I want to echo is that make sure you have looked over your application and your personal statement going into the interview. Because correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is that if you put it in your application, it's fair game to discuss in an interview. So definitely do that. Well, guys, I want to start wrapping it up, actually. It's been about 30 minutes. In the meantime, I'm going to post a real brief survey to anyone in the comments section just to fill out, to give us some feedback to learn how we can improve and do better. But for the very last question before we sign out, I'd like to ask you each if you have one kind of closing tip or kind of big takeaway, final piece of advice, whatever you want to call it, about tonight with the theme of interviews in mind. And so I'll start first because, I don't know, I asked the questions, so I'll start. So what I would say is that the biggest asset in my mind is to what makes you a good candidate is being yourself, because there are so many people who can be a number on paper, whether it's an MCAT score or a GPA. Plenty of people have good numbers. It's a competitive application process. But what makes you a good applicant is you, and that's what makes you unique. So really make sure that you have a strong sense of who you are and how you want to present yourself to a school when you interview, because that will fit in with your story and with your experiences and help craft a good image for the application committee when you end up applying. So that's my kind of takeaway or message. Let's see, Mr. Kallenberger, I'll let you go next.
Yeah, I would say prepare. Utilize the resources that the institutions are providing. Review their websites. Each of the websites are going to provide you with their values, with their mission, and really get a better idea of that school and do your values and their mission align with what you're looking for in your education. Review your application materials and prepare for those type of questions that'll center around your application, your experiences, your personal statement. And I would echo what Noah said, be authentic, be yourself. The interviews are designed, most of us utilize an interview format that's designed to get to know who you are as a person, who you are at your core. What are those personal characteristics, those attributes that really make you an individual that we want to be a part of our communities? So again, be yourself, prepare. I would say those are our two biggest takeaways for me.
Okay, that's great. Miss Ahern, any final thoughts from you?
Yeah, that's hard to top after those two. Really good suggestions from both of you. I think the one thing I want to add is that think about in the admissions process how much of this is completely out of your control. right? So much of it is completely so far out of your control, which is part of why it makes it so anxiety producing. But like Dan was saying, you can control how much you prepare, and you can out prepare for an interview more than the other people that are interviewing for that same spot that you want so badly. So have some confidence that you can prepare really well and use some of the things that Dan was talking about to prepare well for that interview, because that can help you stand apart. You just don't want to become too rehearsed. That's the only part that I would caution somebody. So definitely prepare and do your research and come in there with great questions to ask. One thing I love to tell candidates is that it's okay if somebody comes into our interview and wants to have a piece of paper with them or pen or something like that, Padfolio, that's completely fine. And if that's the case, I encourage people to write down 3 things before they go into that interview. And if you think about it, all right, I'm sitting down in this chair and I'm not getting up out of this chair until they understand these 3 things about me. So whether they are stories, if they are adjectives, if whatever it is, but just kind of sit yourself down and think, okay, I'm going to make sure I get these 3 things across because those are the 3 most important things about me, or they're just so relevant to me. I have to have them know this. So that'd be my quick tip.
It's funny you mentioned that because that's actually a piece of advice I was given when going through the interview process.
Cool.
And it paid off well, didn't it?
Right?
It ended up working out, that's for sure. Well, I want to thank you both for being here tonight. It was really great speaking with you all. I thought the answers were phenomenal and great questions all around. Special thanks to everyone who helped us put together tonight's events, including Moses helping with the questions and Abdallah helping to set up the events. To Dr. Kelly for giving us the streaming platform, and to Daniel, one of my medical student colleagues, for helping to make our intro video. To everyone watching, please share this with your friends. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all the social media. And feel free to check out previous live streams that we've hosted on medical admissions as well. And with that, thank you everyone and have a great night.
Take care, Noah. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.